Missing person alert, missing person alert. As was last seen not uploading a month ago. He's missing from his couch. His fanbase hates him and he's 3 months late in his Sonic Unleashed video.
Where am I?
Same place as your upload button.
Okay, so we did the popular games, we watched the dogs, let's see what's next on the list. Who the hell is Marcus? I've been sleeping on this franchise for quite some time, haven't I? And I'll be honest, I didn't expect these games to be as good as they actually were. Developed by Zakify and Deadfish Studios, FnaM is one of the more different feeling projects thanks to its fully original cast. That's right, there's no foxes, bears, bunnies, or weirdly attractive chickens. No! This series instead focuses on Marcus and his band of unemployed and really aggressive friends and the mystery of whoever the hell keeps taking these terrible jobs. No, seriously, we can't be this desperate. There's quite a lot to unpack about this franchise, so let me stop flapping my gums and let's move on to Five Nights at Marcus 1. FnaM 1 starts like most fan games do. You got an office, a million things to interact with, and a sudden phone call from your new employers. This phone call ends up being one of the only things I don't really like about this game because it tries to explain too much in too little time. This is the only phone call you get in all of the 5 nights, and because of that it tries to detail every threat to you at once, which ends up just feeling very overwhelming. Couple that in with the fact it's night 1 and this game is slightly more complicated than your average FNAF game, and you can get a start that can feel a little bit frustrating. Anyways, I'd say this game is most similar to FNAF 6. In order to complete a night, you actually have to do your job rather than gooning for 6 hours. Of course, you can't just focus on your job entirely. There's a bunch of pests you need to ward off in typical FNAF fashion. On the main desk are the cameras, and these work exactly how you'd expect, except they don't show the layout of the building, so you gotta guess where everything is. It doesn't take too long to get a hang of where everything is in the building, but at the start it does make it pretty hard to track the main threat in all of this: Marcus. Yo, fuck this dude. Marcus is a robot that slowly makes his way towards the office, and the idea is to track him on the cameras before it's too late. Tracking him is very important because he has zero sound or visual cue when he's right outside of the office, making it kinda difficult to learn how to deal with him at first. Thanks to trusty trial and error, I figured out he starts at Cam 4 then progresses to Cam 1 before finally ending up at Cam 3 and right outside of the office. When he's about to attack, he completely disappears from Cam 3 and in comes the only way to defend yourself, the office shock. Over on the maintenance panel there's an option to shock the entire office, and once pressed you... Jesus Christ. That's an even bigger jump scare, honestly. The shock might unironically be my favourite thing about this game, like you feel the impact even if it's at the cost of your eyeballs. Using this completely fries Marcus and sends him all the way back to Cam 4, but he's really persistent and aggressive, so he doesn't remain there for long. Even in the first night you're bound to encounter him multiple times, plus combined with the slightly hard to learn mechanics it can be surprisingly challenging. And that goes for this game as a whole. It's pretty difficult and that's one of the best things about its design. On to night 2 and you're just thrown straight into this one, no phone call, just pure silence and all of the tasks you need to complete. Actually, I should talk about the tasks a little more. If you've played FNAF 6, these work exactly the same. You interact with them and they slowly progress, but if you close the maintenance panel they get paused, meaning you have to commit to them in order to move forwards. I actually love this because it means you can't look at anything else, adding far more suspense and horror to watching a simple download. I also love that it means you as the player can control the pace of the night, so you choose if you want to go piece by piece or completely raw dog a download if you're a psychopath. Anyways, night 2 is more of the same, except now there's a new threat added, being this weird olive coloured bacon hair motherfucker is named Shut, or as I like to call him, Lankatron. Lankatron has a very unsettling design featuring stretched proportions, really chunky fingers and a very creepy smile. This thing makes its way towards the office similarly to how Marcus does, but instead of fully vanishing he actually shows up in the hallway outside of the office. When this monstrosity is there you have a very short window to shock the office, otherwise it's wraps for you. Honestly, he's not that bad to deal with other than the little spook you get when he's outside your office. Him being there actually means you don't have to track him as actively as Marcus. But night 2, it's basically the same shit as night 1. Do the task, ward off Marcus a million times and finally get out of there and move on to night 3. As you'd expect, a new threat is introduced this night, this time being the homie. Yes, that's his real name. The homie is the most unique robot in this game because he has two ways to get into your office and both revolve around the vents. The first is very similar to the others where he'll progress room by room right before suspending himself from the vent ceiling outside above the office. What the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. The first is very similar to the others where he'll progress room by room before suspending himself from the vent right outside the office. Similar to Shot, once you see him outside, just Hassan Piker him and he'll disappear. The second method is a lot harder to track. He'll use the vents to slowly creep towards the office, except he'll appear in a brand new place I haven't spoken about yet. Above the player there's a small vent that the homie can appear in, and once there you need to flash him quite a few times to get rid of him. At first dealing with the homie can be a little bit difficult. The fact he has two ways to attack can be confusing, but it gets a lot easier when you realise you don't really have to track him. One of the methods you literally have to be blind to miss, and the other you can deal with by checking the vents in between everything else periodically. He is a great addition to the gameplay though, because now you've got to check another thing, and on top of the animatronics getting way more aggressive, the nights start to become way more stressful. Okay, time for night 4, and gee wee, big surprise, another new threat is added, this time in the form of Shadow Marcus. This hazy purple dude first appears on the monitor's low bit style, and if you fail to check him in time he'll manifest into reality and disable your maintenance panel. This is obviously pretty bad because you can't defend yourself at all, plus it also means you cannot progress through the nights because you gotta finish the tasks, remember? Similar to everything except Marcus really, he's very easy to deal with. He makes a louder sound cue when he activates, and his hitbox is giant, so I don't think missing a click on him is very possible. But just like the rest, adding one more thing to monitor, especially when the gameplay starts ramping up, still makes it quite difficult, even if the mechanics are very simple. And that is exactly what this game excels at, keeping very simple mechanics but turning them up to 11 to make the later nights very difficult to get through. Night 5 made me lock in and lean forwards. The amount of chaos and hecticness is so much fun to get through, and it makes it a great challenge overall. You gotta watch for Sonic EXE on the monitor, Wannabe Hulk in your hallway, Bipolar Ventman above, in front or inside you, Marcus who loves to teleport around the building at light speed, and all while watching the slowest downloads of all time. It's amazingly designed honestly, it's got a great use of fast-paced gameplay but with just enough variation so it doesn't feel like you're slipping into one pattern like you would with a lot of FNAF games. You actually have to think about what you're doing rather than occasionally checking one thing and then winding something and rinse repeat. All of this is also complemented by the great visuals and sound design. All of the games in this franchise do this really well, and it helps keep you immersed in all of their worlds. The office and the building as a whole has that derelict and worn down look as you'd expect, but the lighting really ramps up the realism and the horror of the environment. The androids slash robots slash animatronics are mostly shrouded in darkness, especially in the vents or the hallway outside the office. There's this sway effect whenever you move around and zoom effect whenever you interact with something, which makes the game feel a million times more natural. And speaking of natural, your character is a heavy breather, which is very understandable given the situation. Whenever you shock or get confronted by one of the robots, the guard starts panicking, which adds a lot to the realism because I'd be doing the same shit too, honestly. But while there is a lot of good with this game, it has one giant problem that I think takes away from the general experience. These robots visually aren't that scary. All of these are just Roblox characters, and there's only really so much you can do with these to increase their fear factor. The only one that kinda gets me is Shot because of the stretched proportions, but mainly because of the surprise of him being in the hallway and not entirely his appearance. Now that's not to say there isn't anything cool about their designs. I like the whole upper body monstrosity look Marcus has, but it doesn't make me go ugh. That also goes for the jump scares. They aren't that great, they do the job, but they don't earn overtime if you get what I'm trying to say. Anyways, beating Night 5 immediately kicks us into a short cutscenes where the lights cut out, mysterious yellow eyes appear, and then suddenly is that Dr. Octopus? Jokes aside, it's not clear what happens to our guard after this interaction. I can only assume he dies because there ain't no Night 6 in this game. That's right, Five Nights at Marcus might be the first fan game to abide by its own name. Beating Night 5 only unlocks a custom night rather than a 6th or 7th. Attempted the custom night on 420 and Marcus slammed me in a record 5 seconds, so let's just say for now I'm not built for this. But that's it for FNAM 1, and overall this is a pretty good fan game. It's fast, stressful, fun, looks and sounds good, plus it's always fun to play a FNAF game with a fully original cast. You guys know what to expect at this point. If the first game is so good, of course there'd be a sequel. Five Nights at Marcus 2 takes place, I can only assume, a while after the first. In this game you're placed in an entirely new setting, and you also play as a new character, Josh. Josh finds his brand new job thanks to his friend Isaac, and I gotta say bro, you might just need new friends. It's great that he got you a new job and stuff, but come on, this place is somehow worse than the first. The job's harder, there's a million more things to deal with, and Marcus is somehow even more aggressive than last time. Seriously, fuck this dude. Just like FnaM 1, you only get one phone call and it does its job, I guess. He tells you how to get the task done and gives you very vague warnings about the evil androids, and that's really all he does. The rest is up to trial and error as you'd expect, and just like the first game, learning how everything works is challenging but also really engaging. Let's talk about the tasks first. These have a little more depth than the one in the first game. To complete a night, you need to scan several parcels and match their descriptions up to the information shown on the right. If it matches, you press accept, and if it doesn't, you press deny, and to go home you need to reach a threshold that gets higher as you progress. I really like these, honestly. They force you to actually use your brain a little, and it's quite stressful to manage because the scans themselves take decently long. Every time you do a scan, you're stuck on this screen, meaning you can't check anything else for a long period, unironically making it scarier because this screen is also facing away from all of the threats. Every time you decide to scan, you also take a massive risk, and pacing yourself properly is very important, especially in the later nights. Just like the first, this game gets chaotic real quick, so let's have a quick chat about the ways to defend yourself. Of course there's cameras, you can't have a FNAF game without them, except this time they were nice enough to show the building layout, which is a massive step up. You're also equipped with a flashlight, however it uses the worst batteries of all time. It lasts for a solid 5 seconds if you're lucky, and you need to refresh its power using the trusty maintenance panel. On this panel you have the option to repair the flashlight, but as you'd expect it takes a while to do, leaving you very vulnerable during the downtime. Along with the flash, the fabled shock system returns, except this time it doesn't blind you, which is a little disappointing. It's fundamentally the same, except now you can shock the vents alongside the office, and they both share the same limited 5 charges. Like the flashlight, you can reset the system, but it suffers from the same risk, so it's important that you use both of these as sparingly as possible. Emphasis on as sparingly as possible. All of the threats in this game are very aggressive, so managing your tools is extremely important. Threat number 1 is Marcus, who's just as potent but honestly easier to deal with than he was in the first entry. Blair, he makes his way towards the office, except this time he shows up on the left side of the hallway before he attacks, giving you a little bit of time to react. To reset him, you essentially mag dump him with your flashlight. I'm not even joking, you just fucking... Doing this to him a couple of times sends him back to the start of his path, but you guys know who this is, so he returns every 30 seconds or so. Thankfully, because he's visible before his attack, it means you don't need to track him as often, so he's honestly not that bad. He's just persistent, annoying, and jobless. Design-wise, I actually think he's a lot more imposing than before, trading out his standard Roblox face with red eyes and a jawless, spiky-toothed mouse. Mouse? Mouth. That mouse, why'd I say mouse? The design doesn't make me go wow, but it is a huge step up in fear factor compared to the first. However, there is a robot that I actually think is a downgrade in terms of how he looks, and that is the second threat, Shut. Shut retains his lanky and uncanny look, but he loses a lot of the features that made his design so creepy before. The smile is gone, the weird green colour is harder to notice, and overall he just ends up feeling like he blends in because of all of the generic robo-skeleton parts. Design aside, he's still the same motherfucker as last time. He'll slowly creep towards the office, appear on a certain side all spooky style, and a good shock will just delete him from existence. Just like Marcus, he's pretty easy to deal with because you can see him in the hallway, so tracking him on the cameras is pretty much useless. And on that topic, I do think this is one of the areas that this game is slightly weaker than the first in. The cameras aren't as impactful until you reach about night 4. The focus is mainly on the hallway in front of you because you need to focus on all 3 sections while managing your very limited flashlight. Threats can appear from the left, right, or center, and part of the game design is balancing when and where you use the flashlight, which is fun, but it does take away from the cameras. This is only really a problem until night 4. From there onwards, one new guy is added, and that makes the game a whole lot harder. But before we get there, let's talk about threat number 3, the homie. The man whose name I still can't believe is real uses the vents once again, and just like the first game, he pops out right in front of your office. To get rid of him, you hit him with the exact same shit as Marcus. You just go and eventually he'll leave you alone. Now you might be asking, if he's stopped by the flashlight, what the hell is the vent shock for? Well, that's reserved for the final and hardest threat to deal with, Lanky. Lanky is a brand new robot introduced, rocking a giant hat, destroyed arm, and the signature red eyes like the rest of the cast. He's the only threat that you need to actively track down on the cameras, similar to OG Marcus. Lanky loves the vents, and the final stop before he gets to the office is vent cam 1, and once he disappears from there, you have a short window to shock the vents before it's too late. And him, this motherfucker right here, is what starts to make the later nights a whole lot more difficult. Everyone else starts ramping up in aggressiveness, and on top of that, now you have to manage the cameras. Oh god no. And then on top of all of that, you gotta factor in that during the later nights there are a lot of tasks to do, with night 5 reaching 20 scans. 20. This game reminds me of how I hate employment. This night on my successful Deathless run took me 18 minutes to beat, which is just insane for a night in a FNAF fan game. There was just so much going on, like look at this. Nigga,
Damn.
we are 3 seconds into the night. The sheer amount of tasks mixed with the sheer amount of stuff you need to deal with can make this night feel like it drags on a little. But I think overall, night 5 is a phenomenal challenge and it's some of the most fun I've ever had in a FNAF fan game. Another cutscene is shown to us after beating night 5, but this time it's far less cinematic than the first. This time all we get to see is a mysterious box before the game cuts to black and shows us the scariest horror of all. This tiny ass paycheck. $130 is all our guard gets after all of the flashbangs he endured. And if I was him, I would go ahead and just sue Celadon Logistics over here. Actually, yeah, wait, that just made me realize I haven't even spoken about the lore locations shown in this franchise. It's actually surprisingly simple so far, which is quite refreshing for a FNAF game. The first game sees us in a facility made by Marcus Robotics Incorporated, which is a company responsible for creating security robots which, yeah, I wouldn't break into somewhere if that was guarding it. However, for some unknown and crazy reason, these robots are malfunctioning, causing them to become hostile, which is why we need to shock and flash to keep them at bay. Sometime after the death of the guard in the first location, these robots are dismantled and left in another storage facility owned by another shady company named Celadon. Not much is known about them, but they do store these robots for a reason that we'll see much later on. As you can tell though, there are still a lot of unsolved mysteries surrounding this franchise. What was the deal with the Yellow Eyes and Tentacle Man? What was in the box at the end of the second game? What were the goals of both of these companies? And most importantly, who the hell is Marcus? Well, we'll find that out next time when I cover Far From Land in like a few weeks, because that game is very good and I don't want that video to be rushed. Overall though, these two games are very good. They're fun, challenging, and what they lack in raw horror they more than make up for with great environments and really solid gameplay. If you haven't played these already, I recommend you check them out. They're that good. Now, how the hell do I get out of here?